Hi, my name is Sam. Welcome to this video tutorial, a request made by a student. I should indicate that this tutorial is based on John Dickinson's tutorial that he made several years ago. Um, John Dickinson of Motion Works. Right, I'll do well to go through this as much as I can. There may be a few variations from what the original work was, but generally the idea of the puppet pin tool and creating different backgrounds is what we want to be able to achieve here. So I'll go to in After Effects. I'll go composition. Let me just play this so you see the end result. Alright, so that's what we have. We're going to create now. So I'm going to go to composition, a new composition, and I'll just call this fantaDance. Okay, so it's a Fanta bottle dancing here, and I'll click on, well, I'm choosing about 20 seconds, 2000 for the duration. I'm using HD TV 72025, and I'll click on OK. Now we have just a blank screen. I'm going to create a new solid, and I'll go solid, and let's give this the name gradient. Alright, so gradient. Alright, let me call this gradient green. So let's say green gradient. Okay, I think that will be more appropriate. And because we call it green gradient, we can use, I'll use a green color just to be able to identify that, but we'll apply a different color to it anyway. So I'll click on OK. Whilst we have this, let's go and add a gradient to it. To add a gradient to a solid, you would go and use what we call the ramp, R-A-M-P, the ramp effect. So in the effects preset panel, I'm going to type R-A-M-P, ramp, and I'll apply this to it. Initially the color comes as black and white, and so I'm going to go to the start color, and I'm going to change that to a light green color somewhere here, and I'll go to the bottom one and I'll choose a much darker green color. Okay, I think that's nice. I'll want to make a copy of this and duplicate, Command D to duplicate the color, and I'll change this. So I'll press return, change the name from green to orange gradient, and again, just to be able to identify the colors a bit well, I'll select the layer and the solid layer, solid settings, to change the solid settings, and I'm going to make the color much more kind of orangey color here, but that doesn't really change the gradient. So currently the two of them still have the same gradient on them. Orange gradient has the same color and green gradient has the same color. Of course it's overlaying so you don't see very much, but I'll go to the orange layer and I'm going to change from the green, those two green colors, to something more orangey. So this one will be a top P, almost kind of a yellow, and down here kind of a brown. Alright, let me go down a bit. I think I would stick with this. Okay, so well, with a ramp, once you click on the name or the word ramp, you get two set of controls, and so you can actually sort of manipulate these the way you want them. Okay, you can move this around and move this there. I'll undo that. I just want it to be a gradient from top to bottom, so this is absolutely fine. Now what we want to do here is to get an audio. When we have the audio play, the audio is going to control the transparency of the orange gradient. So in other words, at one time you may see the sort of color blink, so we see the one underneath it. So to be able to do that, we need to bring the audio. Well, I have already imported an audio file into this project, so I'm going to the project panel. If you need to import your file, you can double click here, and there is a file we are using here, so it can be any audio. In this case I'm using fanta.mp3. All right, so I'll drag this file and drop it into my layer. You may see the screen. Sorry for keep having this, but my internet connection within this area is not working. So we have a problem with our internet, and this may keep coming. Well, I'll put it just down here so it doesn't keep repeating again and again. At least you know he's our friend here for today, right? So we have the audio here. To be able to extract the audio, we can't use it just like this. So we have to right click on it, and we're going to choose keyframe assistant, convert audio to keyframes. Once this is converted, we will see a new layer being added at the top here. When I twirl this down or I expand that, I'm going to see effects, expand effects, and I'm going to see both slide left, right, and both channels. When I go down the both channels, that's the one we're going to use, the both slider. All right, so now we need the opacity of this orange color. So to select the layer and opacity T to bring opacity. Now we are going to use a script. So we'll just hold down the option key or alt on the PC, and I'll click on the stopwatch for opacity. When I click on that, I get extra stuff on the right side here, and I'm going to use this guy here called the pick whip. I'll click and drag. Don't just drag this anywhere. Make sure if you are not able to release it exactly where you want to, bring it back to this. I want to drop it on the both channel slider, and I'll drag and drop this there. You will see that some amount of code is being typed there. When I hover over this area, you get this double arrow, and you can actually drag this. But when you're done, just click outside or somewhere on the stage. Don't press enter. If you do want to press enter on the numeric key where the numbers are. But however, I just suggest you click somewhere here and it's done. Okay, now let's play the animation and see what we got out of this. When I play this, you see it's blinking a little bit, but now we don't see too much of the orange. This is because the audio that we have now, when I move this, look at the values for the audio. All right, opacity. You see that the value starts from 0 and some 35. I've seen 35. I've seen 49. So when you scrap this, I've seen 54. When you keep moving this around, it gives you a sense. I've seen 52. It gives you a sense of the values that are coming out of this. However, opacity is 100%, and so we want sometimes it to be 0. We want sometimes it's like 8. So currently we've put it on the 4. All right. So what we want to do is within the code down here, I'll click again inside that line of code, and I want to say multiply by 2. So asterisk 2, okay, or you can multiply by 5 depending on how much, but 5 probably will mean most things will be so high. I want some of them to be very low, some of them to be very high, so I'm multiplying by 2, and when I finish, I'll click outside here. All right, now let's test the animation, but before we do, realize that earlier on it was about 4. Now it's multiplied by 2, so well, of course it had to be 8, but it's just 9. I'll just go in here and try my animation, and now you see when it blinks, we see the two differences a bit more than we used to see earlier on. All right, so yeah, that's the gradient aspect of it. I'll twirl this down once I'm done with the audio amplitude here. I may use it a little later for something else, but for now I'm happy with this. And well, we may be having a lot of stuff down here, and I don't want to confuse all the things, so we will use this audio layer one more time. We need it one more time, the audio amplitude. So let's make a copy before we have to repeat the same process. So select this, Command D to make a duplicate, but we'll use it for later purpose. And now select the audio amplitude, one of them, Command or Control if you're on a PC, select the orange and select the green. We want to put this orange, green, and the audio as one. If we don't take the audio into that layer and we just leave it here, the animation that we've done will be broken. So sorry, with these three selected, I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose pre-compose. In other words, we are putting these three in one separate comp. Okay, so I'll just call this gradient. So I know, and I'm moving that all the attributes, and I'll click on OK. So instead of 3 layers, we now have just one single layer, and because of that, we can, when we play this again, you see we still have the same results. Sometimes when you have or when you create a pre-composition or a composition and you don't see the results, you may want to come and click in down here within this column and click in this spot like this. Okay, in this case we don't have that problem, so we'll look for an opportunity to utilize that later. All right, so we now have the gradient. We are going to create a few more other things. So to start with, we need a new solid. So we're going to create a new solid, and on the solid we'll call this solid the grid. Okay, so grid, we're going to create a grid on that. I'll use black for the background, and I'll click on OK. Now with the grid layer selected, I'm going to add an effect, and the effect you're going to add here we will call fractal noise. Okay, fractal noise. When you type the word fractal, you see fractal noise. Bear in mind there's a difference between fractal and fractal noise. We want fractal noise. Some people drag and drop, but you tend to sometimes drop it on the wrong thing. So I select the layer I want to apply to and double click on that, and it goes straight into that layer. In this case we are applying to the grid layer. Right, with the fractal noise applied to the grid layer, we want to change a few things here. So I'm going to the fractal type and I'm going to change that to dynamic. I'll change from the noise type to block. Okay, so we get these square boxes, and now complexity I'll change to 1. So it's not as complex as we saw earlier on, now broken down. If you want these boxes to be much bigger, you can actually go down to transform. That's transform under the fractal effect. So this is not transform in the layer effect, but in the effect itself. So I can change the rotation like that if I want to. I don't intend to change that. I can go and change the scale. So let's say we want the scale to be much bigger, we can go like that. Okay, I don't intend to change it. And a few more things down here you can actually make adjustments to, but we will not change that for now. Right, under contrast I'm going to take this a little high, let's say 400, 500 thereabout, and I would go up a little bit on, let's say, brightness, say 85 thereabout. Okay, and for now I'll leave these settings as it is, and with that I'm going to go now and create a grid. So I'm done with the fractal noise. Later on you can come and make adjustments to it. Before we actually add a grid to it, let's go and do a bit of animation to these boxes. So I'm going to go into the evolution, and I can animate by setting keyframes, but just to use a little bit of script here, look at what I'm going to do. I am going into the evolution, and I'll alt click just like we did earlier on, or option click on the evaluation. Now it's changed here, but we can't see exactly what to change. So I'll go down into the layer, all right, to another grid layer where we have fractal noise and we have evolution. Now here we see that the color has changed. Anytime you alt click on that, the color changes. There is some code typed here, and what we want to change is, this is just a generic number, so this says don't do anything. So I am going to type time, or replace that with time asterisk, let's say 250. Okay, generally you may want to end with a semicolon, though it's not really necessary. And when you're done, click just anywhere here, and that's done. Now let's test our animation, and when I click on play, you see that there is some animation going on. You don't hear the audio initially because it is now rendering, and when it's finished rendering, then it will play. In reality, if I click just somewhere here, you will hear the audio play. All right. Okay. So to get out of it, you just press any keyboard shortcut, and you are out, or you just click again, and you are out of it. Now we have our grid layer. Let's add a grid effect. So I'll collapse this. I tend to collapse them just so I have enough room to see or preview what I'm looking for. When there are too many things there, it's a bit difficult to view. Now let me go and add a grid effect. So grid, all right, and I am going to select the layer. I'm applying it to the grid layer, all right, and I would double click on grid here. Okay, so when grid is added, you realize that now we don't see the fractal noise effect again, but under the grid layer, look down here under blend mode, all right, and you'd find it says an option here, none. We want to change to normal. So now we can see. Let's change the color of the grid a little bit, so we can later on change it back I'll click here and I'm going to, so we can see the color. Now they don't seem to sit on the edge of the boxes. We want them to match the boxes. So first, make sure you have the name of the grid selected in the effects, and when you do, you're going to have a few controls. So right here in the preview, you would find that I have this here and there's another one here. What you do is you can move this and drop it just about anywhere. So I'm putting on the top left corner of one of the boxes, that's this guy here, and I'll drag this and put this down somewhere here. Well, you realize that, well, currently things are not very perfect for me, and it may look okay around here, but not necessarily around these areas, and that's perfectly fine. We can go into the anchor point. Realize that when we begin to move these values, you see that it's the corners that are moving, these two values. So what we can go is we can go and click inside here, and watch, I can use my up and down arrow keys to sort of move this by by one. Okay, now if I want to be even more precise, I can hold down the command key and it takes me by 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and I think this way I can sort of, I'm using the up and down arrow key here. Okay, so on this side I think it's quite okay. I'll go to the next value, the Y value, and I'll increase or decrease, okay, depending on what you have. And I think now everything is sitting perfectly. You can really get it to look perfect as we have here. If you are still struggling, well, just change the values as they suit your work, depending on whether you scaled it earlier on or not. Now we really don't want to have the red color. We want to have things kind of black and white, and then later on we'll give it some color. So we're going for kind of a gray color, mid-gray color around this area. Right, so that's good, but we want the borders. We want the borders, the gray border we just had. We want it to sort of animate like kind of like this. Okay, so when the beats of the music play, we just keep sort of getting something like this according to the beat, right? So we can animate a keyframe, but that would be very difficult to animate to every single beat of the audio. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another expression, just like we have done earlier before. Now on the border, I am going to, first you want to make sure you see the audio layer, that's the audio amplitude layer, expand that and go into the effects, and we want the both channel. We still applying to the both channel, and then you also come down under the grid. Make sure you can see, well, you can slide this up so you have more room to see all these stuff. We can go into the grid. So the grid effect, we have fractal noise here to expand the grid effect, and we want the border. So I'll do an alt click. You can either do it here or you can do it down here, whichever one will work. Option click, okay, and this is a generic. The number that comes in or the values that come in earlier on are just generic, so you don't work with them. They just say don't do anything, right? So border, and I'm going to pick whip, and I want to put it on the both slider channel. So I'll go, that's on the audio amplitude and the both slider channel. When I do, it types some amount of code for me, and I'll click outside just about somewhere here. Well, let me test my animation and see if it's really giving me what I want. So I'll click on the preview. You can press 0 on the numeric keypad, and this would run preview again. When it's playing and you don't hear the audio initially, and it sometimes looks like it's going too fast, it is just because it's run preview. When it's finished doing it, it will start to play in real time. All right, so just wait a few seconds, and now it's finished playing, and so it's playing in real time. Okay, so that's nice. We can still add a lot more to it, and just imagine that those square boxes that you have in the background, not the border itself, probably are kind of moving to the right or maybe moving upward, and so we can add a lot more to it. For instance, when I come in here into the fractal noise, I can see the option that we have, that's evolution options. Okay, so we can actually go under evolution options and make a few adjustments to it, or we can just go to evolution and make some adjustments or changes there. Okay, we can animate this to suit just about whatever we want to in this case. But just feel free to play around with the values. Feel free to make some changes here and there. When I go into the earlier project I had down here, which is comp1, you see that when I'm moving this, you can see that the grid in the background is actually kind of moving. It may not be too obvious, but you see from here, all right, around this area, you see this moving around that place. And that was because I went into, let me select the grid layer. Okay, where are you? Okay, background grid. Okay, so I came in and, well, I think I animated offset turbulence rather. Okay, so I animated keyframe offset turbulence. I set a keyframe in the beginning, all right, for only the Y value, and then went to the end and set a keyframe for the X value. Let's probably try and apply to this. So I'll go down here and I'm going to go offset turbulence. I'm looking for the grid layer, the effects, fractal noise, where is offset turbulence. Okay, yeah, you find offset turbulence and a transform. All right, offset turbulence, and I'll set a keyframe. So put your CTI in the beginning, and I'll set offset turbulence, the Y value. You can use the X if you want to, and I'll take this to 20 seconds, the last keyframe, and I'm going to just slide this across. Okay, so it's kind of coming from bottom to top. There are no hard and fast rules as to what you can do with this. Again, just explore and you get some results. Again, whilst this is moving, you realize that the animation, the difference is not so too clear, but at least it gives you a variation of this. You are not to be stuck with what I'm just doing here. All right, so yeah, I'll go on, and I think I've been rambling for a while. Maybe the best thing to do is to make this in two parts, and so I'll finish one part and then just provide you with part two. Come with a part two. Now let's just add some color to this. So I'm going to go again. I tend to collapse these so I can see things much more easily. To add color, there are several ways we can do this, but we are going to create a new solid, all right, and give it a color. So depending on the color you want to work with, maybe you want to go kind of pink, maybe you want to go red. I'll just keep to kind of the original tutorial kind of colors that he used here. All right, so I get this color. Yours could be any color at all. And what we're going to do is we need to put this below the grid layer. So whatever the grid layer is, whether it's sitting down here or wherever it is, I'm putting the new solid below it. Okay, and I'm going to go, well, let's give it the name color. So we just select this, rename it, and I'll call it color. This is just to tell me that it is going to color the grid. Okay, so with this, you come down somewhere here and you find something here called TRK mat, track mat. If you don't see this and you see modes, or you are just somewhere on parent somewhere here, right click on it and you can go columns, and there are these options down here. Or you can also go down here, that's in the bottom left corner, and click on these buttons until you see track mat. Okay, so for color, I'm going to choose color, and I'll go down on that, and I'm going to go Luma inverted map. All right, so this gives me something more like that. And now let me just try and play this so you can see. So that's what we have. Earlier we had black and white. Now we've given some color, and we now can see the gradient thing that we created earlier on, sort of showing through somewhere in one time or the other. Again, the audio is not playing. It will, when you run preview, it will run preview, and then you don't hear the audio initially. After which the audio is going to start playing, and here we go. All right. So I am going to end here and to come with a part two where I'm going to create an organic background, and also probably come in with a puppet pin tool and to explore a few more things. All right, so thanks for watching this very part. Hopefully this friend will be we say thank you to this internet friend. Hopefully my internet will come and I'll be able to upload this as quickly as possible. Right, let me go and